not know their names. So we have deliberately reorganized our newsroom this year and dragged people, sometimes kicking and screaming, to sit next to each other. So specifically, we've integrated the people who write for CNN.com and who produce CNN.com with the TV producers as well. Because although they are still different skill sets, those skill sets are coming closer and closer together. And you will always need people with specialist skills, but I can see a situation 3, 4, 5 years from now where we will be hiring producers, and part of their job will be to service the television program, and part of their job will be to make sure that the website is serviced as well. And you know, it's a trend that's I think unstoppable, and I think it's positive as well.
I think we have time. Wir haben Zeit für vielleicht eine Frage noch. Haben wir noch eine?
You talked earlier about the influence of blogs in American media, and I was interested in the person from Guardian, if he could talk a little bit about their section, blog section, in regards of how it influences the news media in the UK.
I think there's two sides to that. One isn't particularly attractive. It's interesting, when blogs really started in the UK about 4 or 5 years ago, it was mainly very, very geeky individuals chatting mostly about blogging. It was just, and that's how it started, and that was, and it was just a bunch of people going, and it was very much like the early days of the internet, where most of the debate on the internet was about the internet. And I think something's really started to happen in the last 2 to 3 years, particularly around political debate and specialist business-to-business areas, where actually people are providing sort of really quite valuable little resources, and I don't know whether it's a cultural thing or it's taken X number of years to get there. The side of it that isn't sort of, what's quite interesting though is a lot of the political thing is if you were an outsider to politics, this is even more incised than political journalism. It's the gossip that the newspapers don't quite carry. It's the sort of nuance of what this columnist was writing versus another one. It's almost politics imploding on itself rather than the process you'd have hoped would have happened, which would have been about democratising and sort of making politics more approachable. I think the area where I think it is really, really critical is Matthias mentioned earlier, which is just about having specialists going straight to the market, and in whether that's sort of specialist business-to-business areas, media, technology, engineering, etc., or whether it's people with particular hobbies, and I think that's becoming quite important. And I think the question of motivation and why people do it is always an interesting one, but I think there's a lot of it is driven by sort of rampant egos and selfishness, and everyone sort of propping each other up and so that the whole thing should be great, and that seems to work. It's quite good. But I think it's my whole view on blogging, and I've kept blogs myself, is it's even something we should be welcoming. And going back to a point made earlier about hiring students, one of the first things we look for when we're hiring student journalists now is whether they've kept a blog. Because the question is, if you're coming to us and you're saying you're really interested in online journalism, why are you waiting to get a job? Why aren't you actually going and doing something? Why are you experimenting with online video editing? Why are you doing this? I think there's a real danger in journalism school, which is they're still sort of looking at newspaper journalists, magazine journalists, radio journalists. We want people who can come in and do